Oh my god, it's video games. It's me, RetroDrew. We're back with another episode of time where I sit in front of camera and talk about video games, but this time it's a little different than the last time. Talking about bucket list games. Games I want to play before I die. Not that I'm dying, or at least I hope I'm not, or if I am, I don't know. I mean, I guess we're all kind of dying a little bit every single day because the march of time is a cruel mistress, but that's why we play video games, to not think about depressing shit like that. So anyways, I'm going to talk about bucket list games that I want to play at some point, and I just haven't. And I guess, and I'm going to kind of spin this on its head a little bit. I'm going to talk about a couple games that are on my bucket list, and then I'm going to recommend a couple games that should be on your bucket list of games to play before you die. So with that, let's kind of just get right into it. Now, I don't really have any visual aids for these first two games because I don't own them. They're games I have not played yet, for various reasons. First up is Chrono Trigger. Now, this is kind of controversial. Hold on, I gotta burp. Oh, Jesus. See, that's what happens anytime I talk about Chrono Trigger. I just my body rejects it. But Chrono Trigger, it's a game that everybody loves. They rant and rave about it, say it is the greatest RPG since sliced bread. And if I'm being honest, it is one I've just never quite, gotten. I don't know. It has never really grabbed me. However, I'm also not the biggest RPG person. I have a select few RPGs that I absolutely love, but I wouldn't really consider myself a big RPG gamer. But yes, Chrono Trigger, a game that I really do want to play and complete before I die, just so I can say I have beaten it, and maybe that'll change my opinion on it. I don't know. People always say that the music is so good, and that the battle system is great. I think the furthest I've ever gotten into the game was probably about 10 hours. I put a decent amount of time into it. I put a chunk of time into it at one point, and then came back to it a couple months later, or maybe a year later, and I don't know, both times it didn't grab me. I didn't think the music was as amazing as people say. I know, crucify me. I don't know, the story was just, I feel like it was a game that was way too hyped up for me, and it just never quite grabbed me the way I thought it would. So that is why, to this day, I have never beat it, and I've tried to come back to it on multiple occasions, just I've never gotten much out of it. However, I do want to change that at some point, maybe when I end up with a little bit more time towards the end of this year. Maybe that will be the time I go and finish Chrono Trigger and see if it is really the amazing game people say it is. I'm sure it is, just it hasn't quite, stuck with me just yet. But yes, Chrono Trigger is on my list of games to play before I die. Next up, similarly to Chrono Trigger, is another RPG. And that is Panzer Dragoon Saga for the Sega Saturn. Again, one that I hear nothing but great things about, and anybody who has gotten their hands on it and played it is yeah, it's really, really good. And, even for its time, it's really good. It is definitely the crowning jewel on the Sega Saturn, especially for the US market. And I've never played it for various reasons. One, it is one of the most expensive Saturn games out there. I think there was only don't quote me on these numbers, but it was 3,500 or 35,000 copies for the US. Very, very few. And then, so it's really, really expensive, thousands of dollars. It's fucking ridiculous. And then another thing is that I don't think it emulates very well. It's one of those games that hasn't quite been cracked yet. Maybe it has at this point. I mean, I know you can kind of emulate it, but I don't know to what extent the game is broken, or if maybe all of that's been fixed at this point. But again, just one of those games I hear nothing but great things about. It is just kind of one of those holy grails for gamers, and you've got to play it. It is something to experience. So it is definitely a game I want to try and play before I die. So I'm going to keep it short and just say that those are the 2 games, the high priority games on my list, and turn it over to the games I want to recommend that you should play before you die if you have not already. First up, we have one of the best survival horror games out there, and one that is actually getting a remake, and that is Silent Hill 2. Silent Hill 2, if you have not played it, is easily the best game in the Silent Hill franchise. And it's its own contained story. It doesn't have anything to do with the first game or the third game, which those 2 are connected. This one's kind of its own side story, and I think it really, really worked taking those liberties. You play as James. You end up at Silent Hill because you've gotten a letter from your dead wife saying that she is there, and as much as you can't believe it, you go there anyways, and it is just a psychological horror masterpiece. The story is so good, it holds up amazingly all these years later. Trust me, it is a must-play game. Do not spoil it for yourself. Just play the game and experience it for what it is, and once you've beaten it, kind of go back, maybe watch some videos on it to that maybe explain or go more into depth about some of the psychological undertones of the game and certain things, what enemies mean, etc. It is such a fantastic game that you can clearly tell a lot of tender love and care was put into, and that is why it holds up so well all these years later, over 20 years later. It's such an amazing game that you absolutely owe yourself to play as a horror fan. And the best part is that they were smart enough in this era to put the 2D control type in there, so you don't have to deal with the tank controls. You can control it like a normal human being would in a 3D game. It makes this a lot easier to go back to than, say, Silent Hill 1. But yes, Silent Hill 2, an incredible survival horror game, psychological horror game, that you should absolutely play before the remake comes out. Trust me, experience the original, and then go and try the remake, because I don't know, what changes they're going to make to this remake, whether it's going to be good or not, but this original game holds up so well thanks to its amazing story. And lastly, it's my favorite game of all time. I've talked about it in a video on the channel. I've probably talked about it multiple times. I've even got the shirt for it on right now. It is none other than Earthbound. If you have not played Earthbound, do yourself a favor and play this incredible RPG. So ahead of its time for the Super Nintendo, not doing the whole, fantasy Dungeons and Dragons kind of stuff, but setting it in a modern world with wacky hijinks, fantastic writing, an amazing soundtrack. If you are a music nerd like me, there is so much to love about this game's soundtrack, the sampling, just the variety of music. It's such a cool thing to deep dive into as a music nerd. The graphics, I love the graphics. It's like, it looks like Peanuts cartoon, and it works so well. And there's a lot of actual adult themes and undertones throughout this game that really go a long way in shaping up what is a kid's game into being, hey, this is kind of a thought-provoking game for kids, and it's a coming-of-age story, but it also, just kind of takes you on this journey as an adult or a teenager as well. Seriously, Earthbound is one of the greatest RPGs, scratch that, one of the greatest games of all time. If you have not played this, play it by any means necessary. Forget buying a cart. If you don't want to do that, get the ROM. Play it on the Switch Online thing. Play it any way you can. Shoot, if you do want a cart, grab a cart. I grabbed a cart back in the day for, over $200, and I still play through it about every other year or so. I love it. You know what? You don't want to play the super expensive version? Get the Mother 1+2 version on the Game Boy that I've talked about. Very, very good rendition of the game. The music suffers a little bit, but other than that, completely intact. And you get another really good RPG that comes with it. But yes, Earthbound. I cannot say enough good things about this game. I love it to death. You should 100% play this game. It is incredible. It might even change your life like it did for me. But yeah, those are some bucket list games of mine and some games that should be on your bucket list. So, thank you all for watching. This has been a lot of fun, and I will see you all on the next episode. Hey, thanks for watching. If you like this episode, consider checking out these other videos right here, or even subscribing. Also, if you'd like to throw me a couple of bucks, you can support the show on Patreon.